Hi, good day everyone. So for today I'm going to explain to you guys the stages of photosynthesis which occurs in chloroplast. There are two stages of photosynthesis which are light-dependent reactions and also carbon fixation reactions. Okay, so basically you should know the definition of these two types of reaction. Where does it happen in chloroplast? How does it happen? And the product of these two different stages of photosynthesis. Let us go through the comparison of these two stages of photosynthesis. Light-dependent reaction is actually the photo part of photosynthesis, where the light energy is used. Okay, and carbon fixation reaction is actually the synthesis part of photosynthesis, or the production of sugar. Okay, light-dependent reaction occurs in thylakoids. However, carbon fixation reaction occurs in the stroma. For light-dependent reaction, solar energy is converted to chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. However, for carbon fixation reactions, they use the chemical energy formed previously during light-dependent reaction to make sugars. Okay, what is the product of light-dependent reaction? They are ATP, NADPH, and oxygen gas. However, for carbon fixation reaction, the product are carbohydrates or the sugars. Okay, for most plants, which are C3 plants, the carbon fixation reaction is also known as Calvin cycle. Okay, let us have a look at this figure to show the overview of these two stages of photosynthesis that occurs in a chloroplast. Light-dependent reaction occurs in thylakoids, okay, where the light energy will be absorbed, so it produces the light energy will be converted to chemical energy, which are ATP and NADPH. And oxygen gas will be produced as a byproduct. It will leave the leaf through stomata into the air. Okay, carbon fixation reaction or Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma, where it uses the chemical energy from light reaction, which is ATP and NADPH, to synthesize the sugar. Not only that, during the Calvin cycle, carbon dioxide will be fixed. Okay, let us have a look of the components that involve in the light-dependent reactions. It consists of a photosynthetic unit called a photosystem. Photosystem can be found embedded at the thylakoid membrane. It consists of two parts, which are antenna complex and reaction center. The antenna complex consists of chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, accessory pigments, which are symbolized by the green circles. They are bound to the proteins. And the reaction center is actually surrounded by the antenna complex. It consists of a special pair of chlorophyll A at the center and also proteins together with a primary electron acceptor. Light-dependent reactions begins when chlorophyll A and the accessory pigments absorb the light energy. There are two types of photosystems in the light-dependent reactions. There are photosystem 1 and also photosystem 2. The difference between these two types of photosystem depends on their reaction center. The reaction center of photosystem 1 consists of P700. P700 is actually a pair of chlorophyll A molecules with its absorption peak of 700 nanometer. However, for photosystem 2, its reaction center consists of P680. Why? Because it consists of a specialized chlorophyll A molecules with its absorption peak of 680 nanometer. When the pigments in the antenna complex absorb the light energy from the sun, the energy will be transferred from one pigment to another until it reaches the reaction center. The reaction center, which consists of a specialized chlorophyll A, will absorb the energy and its electron will be energized or excited. The electron later will flow during the light reactions. There are two possible routes for electron to flow during the stages of photosynthesis. They are known as non-cyclic electron transport and cyclic electron transport. the difference between these two types of electron flow are, for example, in non-cyclic electron transport, it only involves photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. However, for cyclic electron flow, it only involves photosystem 1. In non-cyclic electron transport, it produces both ATP and NADPH, while in cyclic electron transport, it only generates ATP. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you guys the non-cyclic electron transport, which involve both photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. Okay, but I'm going to explain the activation of photosystem 2 first. Shown here in the figure is a photosystem 2, okay, the structure of photosystem 2, which consists of antenna complex and also reaction center. At the reaction center, we can see here a specialized chlorophyll A known as P680 molecule. Alright, the activation begins when the light energy from the sun will be absorbed by the pigments molecules here, as in the green circles. There can be chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and also accessory pigments. What happens after they absorb the light energy? The energy will be transferred from one molecule to another until it reaches the reaction center, the energy will be accepted by this P680 molecule. What happens to them? After they receive the energy, the electron in this molecule will excite, or they will be energized, and they will be excited, and they move to a higher energy level, and it will be accepted by primary electron acceptor. Okay, so these are the electrons moving to a high energy level, and it will be accepted by primary electron acceptor, which in this case, it is known as pheophytin. Okay, P680 molecule, when the electron loses from this, it becomes oxidized, and it will be written like as P680 positive because it has loses its electron. Okay, so now what happens to the electron which is previously at primary electron acceptor? The primary electron acceptor will passes the activated electron along the electron transport chain, or ETC, until it is donated to P700 plus in photosystem 1. Alright, so photosystem P700 positive becomes P700 in reduced form, or the equation is like this: P700 positive substitute electron, therefore it becomes P700 reduced form. Okay, the ETC consists of a series of electron acceptors. Okay, it connects photosystem 2 to photosystem 1. Another thing is, when the electrons are moving along the ETC, electron transport chain, it will release energy. It will not lose throughout the system. Instead, the energy will be used to produce ATP via chemiosmosis. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the activation of photosystem 1. Okay. A pigment molecule in the antenna complex of photosystem 1 will absorb a photon, okay, or light energy from the sun, which is this. Same goes, the light energy will be transferred from one pigment molecule to another until it reaches the reaction center. The energy will be absorbed by P700 molecule at the reaction center. The electron from P700 molecule will be energized and excite to a higher energy level, and it will be accepted by primary electron acceptor. What happens to P700 when it loses its electron? It will be oxidized, okay, which is this. P700 loses its electron, and therefore it becomes a P700. Loses electron, become P700 positive. Okay, and the missing electron from P700 molecule here will be replaced by electron from photosystem 2 earlier. Okay. Okay, so what happens to the electron which is at the primary electron acceptor? Same goes, it will pass along electron transport chain here, and it passes through a ferredoxin. Okay, so ferredoxin then transferred the electron to the last electron acceptor, which is NADP+. Okay, so NADP+ will accept the electron together with, it takes up the hydrogen ion from the medium and will become NADPH. This reaction is being catalyzed by enzyme ferredoxin NADP+ reductase. Okay, only single electron pass down the electron transport chain, but 2 electrons are needed to reduce 1 molecule of NADP+. Therefore, it is shown here 2 electron. Okay, NADP+ accepts 2 electron and 1 proton and reduce to NADPH. NADPH is the last electron acceptor. What happens to the NADPH? It will be released through the stroma. Okay, do you still remember in Photosystem 1, whereas the P700 loses its electron and become P700 positive? However, the missing electron will be replaced from electron of Photosystem 2. Photosystem 2 also loses its electron, which referring to P680. Okay, earlier P680 becomes P680 positive when it loses the electron. So this missing electron from P680 need to be replaced. Who's going to replace the missing electron? The electron will come from the photolysis or light splitting of water. So this is the use of water. Water need to be split and therefore it releases electron so that it will replace the missing electron from photosystem 2. Okay, P680+ is a strong oxidizing agent. Therefore, it able to pull electrons from an oxygen atom from water molecule. Okay, what happens to the water molecules when it's split? Okay, so it is split by an enzyme into 2 electrons, 2 hydrogen ions, and an oxygen atom. The electrons are transferred one by one to P680 positive, and therefore it will reduce it to P680 once again. What happens to the hydrogen ion? It will be released into the thylakoid lumen or thylakoid space. 2 water molecules need to be split from photolysis of water to form 1 molecule of oxygen gas. Okay, and what happens to the oxygen gas? It will be released to the atmosphere as a byproduct of photosynthesis. So this is the summary of non-cyclic electron transport, which involve both photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. It will produce the chemical energy, which is ATP and also NADPH. Water will act as an electron source, and the last electron acceptor is NADP+. It begins with the photoactivation of both of these photosystems. The photoactivation begins when the pigments in the photosystem absorb the photon or light energy from the sun, which will activate the P680 molecule, for example, in photosystem 2. Electron will be excited and will be accepted by the primary electron acceptor, and the electron will transfer along the electron transport chain. At the same time, photosystem 1 will be activated, meaning here it will absorb the photon. The energy will be transferred from one pigment to another, and it will activate P700 molecule. Electron will be transferred to the primary electron acceptor. The missing electron from P700 will be replaced from the electron of photosystem 2 whereas the missing electron from photosystem 2 will be replaced by the electron from splitting of water. The electron, which is at the primary electron acceptor after it excites from photosystem 1, will move along the electron transport chain, and it will be accepted by the last electron acceptor, which is NADP+, and it will form NADPH after it accepts 2 electrons, and also at the same time it taken up proton from the medium. So this is the summary of the non-cyclic electron transport. How about we have a look about the movement of the electron in these types of electron flow. From photosystem 2 to photosystem 1. At the same time, photosystem 1 will be activated to the primary electron acceptor, and finally to the last electron acceptor, which is an NADP+. In the presence of light, the non-cyclic electron transport involves the formation of ATP, which is coupled by one-way flow of energized electron from water, photolysis of water, to NADP+, which is the last electron acceptor, and it will form NADPH. NADPH will be released through the stroma. The two products of light-dependent reaction, which is ATP and NADPH, both will be released to stroma, and this will be used later during carbon fixation reactions, or also known as Calvin cycle. So that is the fate of the two chemical energy that is formed from non-cyclic electron transport. Okay, so now I want to explain to you guys the second type of electron flow in light-dependent reaction, which is cyclic electron transport. It involves only photosystem 1. It will produce ATP, but no NADPH and no oxygen will be released, meaning here there are no photolysis of water occurs during cyclic electron transport. Okay, so it begins when the photosystem 1 will absorb the photon or light energy from the sun, right? The pigments in the antenna complex will absorb the light energy, and the energy will be transferred from one molecule to another until it reaches the reaction center. The molecules in the reaction center is P700. So when it receives energy, the electron from P700 will be excited or energized. Okay, so it releases its electron, and therefore it will be oxidized. P700 will become P700 positive. Where will the electron go? So the electron will be accepted by primary electron acceptor. Okay, so the electron will be accepted by the primary electron acceptor, and it moves down the electron transport chain, which consists of a series of electron carriers. As shown here, the electron carriers are FD or ferredoxin, cytochrome complex or cytochrome C, and also PC, which stands for plastocyanin. So the electron will move in a cyclic, okay? From primary electron acceptor to ferredoxin to cytochrome complex to plastocyanin, and return back to P700 plus, and P700 plus will become a reduced again to form P700. Okay, so the pathway of the electron is cyclic. All right, the excited electron are transported through an electron transport chain, which eventually return back to P700. Okay, what is the significance of the electron flow here? When the electron move along the electron transport chain, it will release the energy. Okay, it will release the energy. The energy later will be used to produce ATP, which is this molecule. Okay, the ATP will produce via chemiosmosis, which I'm going to explain later. Okay, so let us have a look about the movement of electron here in cyclic electron flow. Okay, you can see that the movement of the electron is cyclic, or the pathway is cyclic. Okay, the importance of cyclic electron transport is to produce extra ATP to power other ATP requiring processes in chloroplast, and not only that, it is to help to maintain the optimal ratio of ATP to NADPH required during carbon fixation or Calvin cycle. So this is the table showing comparison between linear and cyclic electron transport. In linear electron transport, the electron source comes from water. Water, they undergo photolysis of water, where it will break down into protons, electrons, and half oxygen. But to get 1 molecule of oxygen, 2 molecules of water is needed. Okay, the electron source in linear electron transport is water. However, for cyclic electron transport, there are no source of electrons because the electrons cycle through the system, which use photosystem only. Okay, in linear electron transport, oxygen will be released from photolysis of water. However, there are no oxygen will be released during cyclic electron transport. The last or the terminal electron acceptor in linear electron transport is NADP+. Okay, NADP plus accepts 2 electron. It also taken with it 2 hydrogen ion and will be reduced into NADPH. Okay. However, in cyclic electron transport, there are actually no terminal electron acceptor or the last electron acceptor because they cycle throughout the system. In linear electron transport, the chemical energy will be stored in 2 forms, which are ATP and also NADPH. However, for cyclic electron transport, it only produces ATP. In linear electron transport, it involves both photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. However, for cyclic electron transport, it involves only photosystem 1. Now,